everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we have Ruth Diaz to share with us how to create an emotive landscapes designing transformative XR journeys. So I will pass the baton to Ruth.
Hi, thank you so much, Dominique. Hi, everybody. I think Dominique is going to be helping mediate this. So I'm going to just talk, and Dominique, feel free to interrupt at any point if there are questions or technical difficulties. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have a slide deck here. And yeah, let's jump in. So yeah, we're talking about emotive landscapes and extended reality. How do we make people feel things that they want to feel, and maybe sometimes that they don't want to feel, with the idea that eventually they're going to feel what they want to feel again. We're going to go through an intro on me first, and then we'll jump in. So I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. I'm also a DEI practitioner, and emphasis on the practice part. Never perfect, but I very much value inclusivity and how we do that through environmental design, community design. And these are the most relevant, the ones in bold, examples of what we're going to be using of my skill set today. There's other pieces that I do have experience in and get paid to do, but this is an overview in general. And you can see over to the right, these are just some profile photos and different experiences and applications. You can see behind, I'm going to have a lot of photos today to illustrate some environmental concepts. And as you look at all these different photos, notice what you feel in your body. As you look at it, notice where your eye is drawn. Imagine yourself being in these different photographs as if you were in a headset. It was surrounding you. You could interact with different pieces. What you see in this kind of wheel, colorful wheel underneath this person I'm standing with. So one of my usernames in extended reality is RCDegs. So you see a diversity wheel, and these are different levels of privilege that we all have. We're all on one of each of those steps. The bottom steps there are the most privileged. They're the default and the expected amount of resources and identity that happens in society today. The ones in the center at the very top are the people with the least privilege, and those identities often get pushed out to the middle or the outside. They're marginalized. And so we're going to talk about that briefly as far as what are my lenses and biases. So in this picture, you can see that I pulled those wedges out and ordered them according to what I related to. So I'm going to name these briefly with that awareness that if we're not talking about our privilege, then we might be getting more unconscious with it and then misusing it and actually doing harm to people who aren't like me, basically. So this is letting you know where my biases are and really welcoming for you to interrupt at any point if you feel like I'm really stepping into doing some harm to any of, especially the smaller wedged group. So my biggest privileges are that I have this immersive technology. I have multiple headsets that I've bought over the years, and that makes me a very tiny percentile. And so that dark blue wedge back there is representing that. I'm also a citizen in the land that I live. That's a privilege. I am heterosexual passing of sorts. I have a post-secondary education, and I'm white passing. And I also speak English, which is also in the language that the culture that I'm in. So those are all really big privileges that can make me go unconscious sometimes. You can see the smaller wedges above. I'm not going to name all of these, but I'm letting you all know these are places where I just have it so much easier than a lot of people. And sometimes that makes me feel too comfortable and not stay as conscious of who's around me and who I'm affecting. And that's my kind of accidental weird face with one of my headsets that took a picture. So let's talk a little bit about why is a psychologist talking about environmental design? In extended reality as clinical psychology, which basically means that we are looking at how things break down in our minds and in how we behave with each other. So we're looking at what's broken, what's wrong. In XR today, clinical psychology doesn't really exist in its classic form. And part of my training taught me about this concept of the collective unconscious, a very foundational influencer of sorts of psychology is Carl Jung. And it's this idea that we can have this, if you've ever heard of lucid dreaming, he believed in kind of at least a mythical way that we had this common space somewhere in another dimension that we could join each other in. And that was called the collective unconscious. It was that place in between everything where we felt things and we could learn things that never logically completely connected. I believe Carl Jung would love extended reality and immersive spaces. He wrote extensively about his dreams and his almost like trance-like experiences, especially when he felt broken. And to let you know why I'm in extended reality, part of it had to do with a model that I developed back in 2015 and needing a three-dimensional art environment to really explore that because it wasn't working as well as I wanted it on 2D screens. And part of it was because of COVID and what in psychology might be called a creative adjustment, that I was very isolated and I fell really deep down the rabbit hole into extended reality during COVID as a way to cope with just that loneliness, and also at that time being a support to, several dozen people as a therapist who were coping with a lot of trauma. Understandably, the whole world was. So extended reality and social VR were my safe places to go and kind of find who I was becoming in all that trauma. So from that psychologist end, we're going to talk more explicitly today about feelings. And what I want you to do as you look at every single picture, which I might have mentioned this already, but I'm going to keep mentioning this, is notice what emotions you're having. Notice what's happening in your body. Body language that we can sense internally and we also show externally are ways to understand our environments and how we're kind of encoding pieces of information. I believe that immersive spaces are a place that we can experience an accelerated amount of harm and healing, and that games are a way that we kind of escape from our physical reality and the norms of, taking out the trash and doing all the mundane routines that are important for our lives. That immersive spaces are a way to get a super dose. And entertainment can be a type of escapism, but it can also be transformative. And I'm really passionate about the transformative. So I'm going to practice this. I'm going to invite anyone watching and being present to do this also. Just do kind of like close your eyes a moment, do a body scan, take a deep breath. Just notice any emotions. Maybe it's like, oh, it's Saturday morning. If you're on the West Coast, still drinking coffee, still waking up. People are talking about emotions. Maybe feeling a little irritated or ambiguous or confused. And so we're going to go on a journey today. And I want you to keep paying attention to what those emotions are, because what we're seeing on this 2D screen maps really powerfully into the third dimension, immersive reality dimension. And so, yeah, noticing that and trying to give any names or just like even colors to what you're feeling. If we don't sort our feelings out, we can get overwhelmed really easily. So that's a little hint for you. So we're going to start out with this video. I actually captured this yesterday and it's part of a much bigger interview, but we're just going to do about 4 minutes of it. And before we jump into analyzing everything to death, which the psychologist in me loves to do, we're just going to feel a space together. And this is an immersive reality space in VR chat. So I'm going to push play. See how this goes.
Hello. Oh my God, you're Kermit. You fit in. You're in your natural habitat.
I thought you would value this as
Mhm.
an offering to
I
your
mean, the
beautiful
colors
world.
match perfectly. Hold on.
Yay. Oh, I get a little photo. Kermit is happy. There's intention in these spaces, and I have my own of a conversation with people was how drawn everybody was to the middle, and also how the
Yeah.
more people who actually came to this circle, the smaller everybody started to make their avatars so people could fit.
Well, I guess one thing about world building is the spaces speak for themselves. We can design the spaces to be functional or to accommodate how many people in here and, have special rooms and different areas. But at the end of the day, it is the users that are going to determine how the world is used. And they always find a way to do it. But the world also has the building or the structure itself. It speaks to the people that visits here. It kind of draws them in like the central area over here. Uh, I do see a lot of people always kind of popping into the middle and just kind of sitting here at the middle, or sitting right next to the lantern, and they just take in the sight. They look up, they take in the scale, or they just like what you said just now. They go into the water and they just go between the reeds and the uh, the the uh, the flowers and everything. But as for what this world was built for, that it was the time when Max passed away, and a lot of people were dealing with grief. And it wasn't just Max. There were several other people that also passed away. Um, and I did notice that for some reason, um, worlds, aside from being fun places for people to meet, it can also be a place for healing. I started building this not as a shrine or not as a memorial world, but it was more like a place that is focused on healing or focused on people to allow themselves to be lost in order to find themselves. It allows you to step out and into a different kind of feeling. And I guess when it came into VR chat, it evolved into that. You would notice that there are no mirrors in here, amazingly. There's no video player. It's only the ambient sound. It is only the sounds of the chimes, the wind chimes, and also the singing bowls in some areas, and the wind. And I guess that was my intention for this place. It is a quiet place. It is a vast and quiet place where there is enough space for people to distance themselves when they need to, but there are also spots that reward you for coming together or to gather and just talk, basically.
Okay. So I like to have more visual meditations. And actually, before I switch out of that, I want you to all check again. What are you noticing in your body, having gotten to learn about one immersive space? That was the creator talking, if I didn't say that, Taja Suka, in VR chat. If you have a PC or a headset, you should be able to access that. And you can look up Caldera Garden and go visit it. It's one of my favorite immersive spaces I've ever found in virtual reality. And it's not something exciting. It's something very much like it reminds me about the word being in human being. It brings it into my body. And there was so much about this interview that will probably be about a 40-minute video I'll be posting in the next couple of weeks that just filled me with such a feast. And so that is a way to start out before we jump into all the details and recognize spaces don't have to take us anywhere. They can just bring us here. Yeah. So part of what I'm doing here today is giving you a little sample about how I teach and how I provoke learning. And so I often have so many words and so many things and so many places we can go. I've spent thousands of hours in immersive reality, working with people and also learning different creation tools and just finding a lot of joy in that shared dreamscape. On the 19th, I'm going to be doing a workshop also with XReality. And these are some of the different topics we might be covering. There's going to be a survey that's offered out, if it hasn't been already, where you can elect which of these you are most interested in learning. And I'm going to go ahead and pick the top 3. And it's going to be about a 6-hour workshop that will have a mixed reality format where we can both watch on screen, but also for those of you who have quests and are able to access Horizon Worlds, we'll be able to go in and do a little bit of world hopping and building together. So we're going to go through some definitions because I don't want to assume my audience. You've seen DEI already, diversity, equity, and inclusion. You might have heard about this more in work settings or corporate settings. It's a very core value for me, because I believe that the most engaging experiences, the most transformative, delightful experiences have a lot of DEI embedded in them. And we're going to look at examples of that today, why DEI can bring us joy. And when it's not there, when it's not so inclusive, what that feels like, other ways we provoke feelings. So just again, not wanting to assume that everybody knows. So VR is virtual reality. AR is augmented reality, where I'm both seeing things that aren't really there with some kind of technology through my phone or a headset, but I'm also seeing my physical reality environment. Then there's mixed reality, which is taking multiple different kinds of mediums, like my desktop, my mobile, and letting me interact with them and interact with some kind of environment in a way that feels very living and vivid and can translate between these different mediums. So just found this yesterday. Shout out to Andy Fidel for sharing this on LinkedIn. I encourage you all to try this website out, getsubmersive.com. That is a picture of my face looking into the camera, playing around with this new product that's going to be coming out, which is like a type of sensory deprivation tank, but it's also going to be using augmented reality and maybe mixed reality to fill you with awe as you float in these different areas, maybe alone, maybe with people. But it's a really clever idea. And the website itself is its own journey. Very basic, but beautiful. I want to go over some definitions because I think that sometimes when I get excited, I talk through these really quickly and I don't define them. And it seems really important that we make sure we're talking about the right roles, the stakeholders involved in immersive reality experiences. So we have consumers who are buying products. We have users, they might be buying them, but they might not be. We have developers, they're creating, building digital products, designers. So they might not be doing the coding as much, but they overlap with developers and they're creating the user experience. Like how do we interact to get to the fun part? And is it sustainable? I'm realizing I don't have this all the way open, so I'll get back to that. I'm like, how are we interacting with this? And then we have prosumers. this is a term I only learned a few years ago, but I really appreciate it. It's professionals who are also consuming the products that they are making. And ideally, prosumers are doing that alongside the users and the consumers. And finally, we have this idea that we throw around all the time, but a lot of times I think it's misused. Concept of community, about a group of people who share common interests or location, and maybe have a routine of interacting and supporting one another. That space that we just saw in VR chat, I think, is a really brilliant community space that isn't just there for grieving. I've had very powerful conversations that just accidentally happen in that space. And then I want to acknowledge my own competency levels, self-assessed, but also with a lot of experience being given this information from other people in the profession. So over on the right-hand side, you can see the definitions for each of these kind of experience levels. I've been practicing DEI for at least 10 years. I would almost say 15 professionally. And so that one doesn't quite fit the technology measures over to the right, but I would say that, this is a core identity and passion for me. And so I'm going to give myself that mark, a little bit shy of that, but yeah, I would fit in the more advanced, but I definitely have innovative frames and leadership around DEI. Virtual reality. So I also have an advanced understanding of that. I'm kind of somewhere between thought leader and advanced, doing multiple projects, and I don't have the coding and the hardware as much, but I definitely have a lot of the software expertise and knowledge. And yeah, and then augmented reality, I have dabbled in creating content, etc. I'm very inspired by it, but I think because of my privilege, I fell into VR, and it kind of was like, it felt a little bit like taking a step back. I'm learning more and more about augmented reality, and one of my favorite things about it is how much it makes it more accessible to everybody and can be a better shared experience. I'm excited about how it's going to develop over time and integrate with virtual reality. And then we talked a little bit about mixed reality, that concept of using multimodal technology. So desktop and phone and virtual reality, that there's a fluidity of interacting. And it's not just I'm sitting there and watching, but I can engage with it. And then extended reality is like the full bubble. And what are the principles for all of these that fit together? So just wanted to check time because I always go slower than I thought. Okay, so today we're going to talk about environmental storytelling and design. And then we're going to, if we have time, we're going to get to the inclusive and not so inclusive spaces area. A lot of the slides you're going to see here have elements of all of those, but I'm just going to go over some highlights for you to think about. So you can see this picture over here. It's the very first scene in a game called Brick Tales. And notice, if you were playing this game, which I encourage, I think it has a lot of good keys to environmental design in it. Grandpa is writing you a letter and saying, I've found this amazing thing and I'd like to show you. Notice the avatar character that you are given and assigned. You don't get to choose a different avatar. And what does that tell you culturally about who is the center character? Who was this designed for? And then one of the questions I've started to ask myself is like, first 5 minutes, right? Like, who is going to be the most thrilled by this? And who is going to be like the most confused? How do I sustain that fun, knowing that somebody might jump out at any moment? To complete this game, I quit it midway out of frustration because it gives some kind of challenging building experiences. I quit it probably 5 different times. And I was surprised that I came back every time because I was like, oh, why is this so hard? It shouldn't be this hard. I was really good at Legos. So knowing that, like, You might lose people, but are you planting enough seeds to bring them back? And that kid in me that loved a challenge kept saying, let's try again. When we use words in environmental experiences, we have to keep asking ourselves, is it better to embed it so it's more implicit? When is it important to make it explicit? And I appreciated that this was the most user-friendly, the least obtrusive choose your own adventure word experiences that I'd seen. And I think symbolically, this is what I'm inviting you into today. So I will simplify. Step 1, we help people make them happy. Step 2, happiness crystals appear. So I felt confusion at that, but I also felt kind of entertained, kind of like, yeah, what's that going to look like from Legos? Happiness crystals appear. Here's another messaging. With all this knowledge, you are fully prepared to jump into a great adventure. If you ever feel unwell or dizzy, take a break. So I think there are moments when being very explicit and black and white with people about how to take care of their bodies is a way to create a sense of safety so we can feel all the other feelings that we want to feel. And I appreciated this. I think I haven't seen this with a lot of immersive games, but it's common when especially you're going in headset to feel a little woozy or dizzy. And prompting people to be careful is important so they last through the game. And then this one was interesting because this is where we're getting into kind of some complex interpersonal pieces where we're coding people and thinking about what does conflict bring us? And when do we try to talk even though we're feeling frustrated? And I definitely identified with the dragon at times. I've been identified as a dragon at times, and I appreciated this. This felt like justice to me. It definitely drew me in. This was also another one from the psychologist in me that I had mixed feelings about. So I'm not a stupid. I'm not stupid anymore. I'm sorry. I was just afraid. I think there's a simplicity in those words that I could have used as a kid. I'm sorry, I was just afraid. And a game demonstrating that feels like I'm excited for the next generation that'll play with this and have better words to describe, oops, I just got really scared. And sometimes when we're really overwhelmed and scared, we narrow our vision and we can come across as less intelligent or less responsive in the way our environment or people want us to be. So thinking about that in environmental design of the more overwhelmed, the more you're inciting an adrenaline rush, a terror response, which sometimes people really think they want, the more simple and careful you have to make about those pathways, because that can create that tunnel vision and make people feel really frustrated if they're not getting it. So here's an example of creating wonder in a game called Puzzling Places. If you haven't tried it, I definitely encourage it. It's now multiplayer. These are some questions to ponder when you're thinking about that. How does the experience build with satisfying bites? So it's a puzzle. And the thing you see in front of you, I believe I put, you can choose how many puzzle pieces you are gonna put together. So it could be 25 pieces to make that, and it's like a 5-minute puzzle, but you can also choose 400 pieces or even 1,000 sometimes. So how is it satisfying? Every puzzle piece that's added for that particular build, you get to hear more environmental noise. And it definitely brought up that feeling as a kid of awe and wonderment with Christmas. And yet, when I did it on my own, I was in a mind space. And when I did it with a friend, I was in a different mind space. And every time you put that puzzle piece in and there's sounds and more environment, sometimes it would bring us out of our conversation to like reflect on some memories about Christmas time. How does the journey get shared with the adventurers community? And then how often does the adventurer look up? So specifically for wonder and awe, it can be really important to get people to put their head up. That actually simulates awe sometimes. So I'm going to give just some, subjective ratings of +1 or -1. This is my ratings for this particular app. And I encourage you to do something like this whenever you're prosumering. Is this a +1 or a -1 or a 0? So I would say +1 for the satisfying bites, +1 for the multiplayer and just like the subtleties that go with if it's individual, can it sustain? If it's multiplayer, do you lose some of that magic or are they compensating for that? -1 for the next two. It's hard to share this out in a way that makes sense. There's no really good place to take a selfie or encouragement to do videos and then no looking up, So my fantasy for this game that I hope they do someday is that at the end of putting it together, you can become really tiny and be in the space and be able to look up and walk through it. So we're going to talk about explicit inclusive designs. So this is just a picture in Horizon Worlds, which is a co-creating building space art app and also social space in Meta's owned social app. And you can see this elephant in the middle of the table. And it was somewhat of a joke that was put in there for a while in this idea of the elephant in the middle of the room. How do we talk about the thing that everyone can feel, but nobody can see? And what size do we make that to actually be able to have it in common and not feel like it's sitting on top of us? So some of the games that we're looking at today have various elements of that implicit and explicit design. So Brick Tales, we started to look at Walkabout Mini Golf. I'm going to show you some pieces on that, Puzzling Places. And these all have links to them. So if you want to reach out and get this slide deck, I'm happy to share it. Deism and Call of the Sea. And there's a couple others that I didn't get on there yet. So down the rabbit hole, through the looking glass, this is a way that we're setting up inclusive design by having people see at the top. We want to know what language you need. We can put subtitles for you. These are all ways to show you belong here, even if you don't have the neurotypical or the language default of the space. And then different kinds of volume. Those are all information. How quickly can we access that? This is another game, Call of the Sea. That's cut off there, sorry. I was surprised at how many languages they had available. That really excited me. I took a screenshot, just like, wow, this is more than I usually see. And I think as AI continues to help us kind of coordinate and translate, that's going to be more and more realistic. So paying attention to the people that are actually like making space for many cultures to interact with the product. Walkabout Mini Golf. This is something that popped up probably 6 months ago, and I've seen more and more of these. We've added settings for sensitive to flashing lights. Those are all ways that even if you don't have that sensitivity, you're seeing that the developers are practicing kindness and they're anticipating that what's fun for some of us might be really harmful to others. This is another social VR application. I would say on the presentation of it, it's kind of overwhelming. There's a lot of words, but I've never seen anything quite like this. In the onboarding, you get 2 options. I want people to join me and help me. I want to learn alone. I felt touched by that. Like, yeah, they know. They know that I might want to just learn because I'm talking to someone, not have to figure it all out or go through specific steps. They also have these badges. This is orienting me to who I might be talking to. And I appreciated that. Okay, we're going to talk more about immersive social XR. Part of the reason I love immersive social is because of that co-created space and how much we can have ideas and iterate on those ideas, repeatedly try out different things, and how much we can test each other's experiences. So whether you're here because you want to design games or just like stories, or you're just curious, I really encourage you to check out these experiences. Some of them are available on desktop. And this is a way that you can start to kind of observe human behavior as if you were watching a group of animals, a flock of geese. Look for the patterns about how people interact with environments. That will teach you a lot about the feelings that we're evoking with the people who are like us and the people who aren't like us. So when I'm building experiences, and I've built hundreds of immersive experiences, sometimes they are designed to last, 5 minutes. They're just an intervention of sorts, and sometimes they are hangout spaces where you can go to an event and you can also spend an hour or two in there creating with people and just hanging out. But these are different levels of that creation process. And I want to encourage you to, go ahead and like build things that are not all the way done, and build community that will forgive you for that and still give you good feedback. And so you start with that sketch, which is kind of like sketching in a drawing book. You can have very basic shapes. And then gray boxing, where you're kind of outlining where everything should go. And then you're adding functionality at the alpha level, and you're making it interactive or adding whatever pieces are the more technical journey part. And then the beta is where you're releasing it as if it's going to work. And then finally, that's where you get to kind of walk away and leave it alone and see if anybody hunts you down and says, it's really broken. So keywords here is iteration. The more you iterate, the more likely you're going to reach people emotionally in really powerful ways. And then prototyping, like don't try to make it perfect. Just get it to that first level and then go ahead and start sharing it. So this is an example of that. This is a team building exercise, very, very basic, where we were determining values for a company. And my colleagues were all my guinea pigs. So we were like, okay, let's try this out. We just have these words and these bubbles, and what are our values for our group? And within an hour, we were able to nail down 5 values out of like, I don't know, 50 different options. And this is a kind of next level. This was an example of a game that we want still to build, but we didn't get it all the way there. But it still became a great conversational space about gender and sexual identity and how they all fit together. And these were some of the people that came and tested it out and enjoyed it with us. HIV awareness and allyship. This was a community-led and built world that was creating this open space to have conversations about HIV. We had an event in there, and there was also an outdoor museum. I encourage you to check it out. The goal of that space was to make it feel very wealthy and established and abundant. And so that anybody coming there would feel a reversal of that stigma around this disease and would feel some awe and respect. I wanted them to feel like they were at a $1 million fundraiser where that's what you had to pay to get into the door. And what you see behind is community art, that tree, which is the hemoglobin tree. Instead of leaflets, you have little blood droplets, was a memory space for everybody who had died, and a very powerful place to arrive. If you go to that world, look for the black box in the opposite corner of that tree, and you'll still end up at the tree and touch the black box. Very emotionally powerful. This is a funny world of sorts, but it's a really powerful one also. It's called Blue Hope. Think about what that would mean if you just heard it. Blue Hope has to do with colon cancer. And in this world, you can actually walk through a colon and see what cancer looks like as it develops. This is at the very ending part where you get to do a selfie, and they made it really silly and funny. You see the queuing of the number 45 behind my head there in the center. There are ways that they're asking you to take the messaging of this world, that you need to have your first colonoscopy by 45 years old, out into the world and teach other people. Very clever design, and taught me a lot. This is a training world. Iteration, again, is key. This was an earlier design model where we were learning about emotions and how they happen in conflict. And so this is showing you what that teaching space looks like in the middle, but also how expansive and kind of otherworldly the outside of that teaching space is. And this is the next level of that design where the emotions started to bubble instead of be the blocky squares. And that's a whole other workshop we don't have time for today. This is a different kind of environment called Become. If you do go to this world, there are no instructions in it. It's completely user-led. So somebody either brings you there and teaches it, or you figure it out. But you basically become sperm and you go on a race and you try to find the secret hidden chamber at the end. And it makes people like, recoil, but also just be fascinated because it's going to the first moment where competition was a thing in our lives and testing out what we think is going to happen. And it was developed as a challenge to people to realize that very low poly experiences can be very powerful and has changed lives. I've literally been told that multiple times, just this like 5-minute journey. Okay, I feel like I'm showing you, I mean, literally I could talk for 10 hours about these different spaces, but this is one you can also visit called COVID-19. And it was designed as a community intervention world to address rumors and misinformation on COVID. If you go to this world, go ahead and touch the microscope and it'll take you to a yellow school bus, magic school bus moment. So think about when you're doing environmental design, if you're going to cause an unpleasant emotion, which I was confronting people with some of the rumors and misinformation being spread, how do you reward them for tolerating that distress? This is a world built around domestic violence. It's called Phoenix, and Phoenix Rising, actually, and has been such a powerful world. Again, 7, maybe 10 minutes total if you're going with someone. But finding the messages at the end has brought most people who go through it to tears. And this was built by somebody who didn't consider themselves a world builder, environmental designer, or an artist. And it took them over a year and a half. It's still very powerful how much we can evoke emotions. I would say get involved with bringing people to spaces and seeing how they react, even if they're not your own. So this was a college tour that we went on recently where college students wanted to learn about XR. Even though I don't get paid for all of these things, I so enjoy feeling immersive environments through newbies' eyes and understanding how they're processing. Here's another environment. So this is combining the familiarity and the expectations of the holiday Thanksgiving with the realization that there are secrets behind the food and behind closed doors that we have to face. So you can see that turkey in the background. And if you walk up to the turkey, you can learn about what the turkey symbolized for indigenous people. And I'm just flooding you with all kinds of immersive environments, but I'm giving you a little preview of what we might go do and tour when we do our workshop. This is a airplane, but it's also for DACA participants who are people who are not legal citizens of the United States, but were born here or brought here when they were children. And they're kind of in a very uncomfortable place where they can't really be part of society, but also can't leave because they wouldn't be able to get back in. So this was a simulated role play with a new law that was passed last year, teaching them how to go through the border patrol process. And at the end, you land in this waiting room about to have maybe an interview with a border patrol person. And while it's teaching empathy to people of privilege who have never had to do this, it's actually helping people turn their empathy off if they're the DACA participants. How to stay with your own experience and not empathize with people who are seeing you as hostile. And then finally, for people who were very overwhelmed because their empathy went up, we had this extra space at the end where people got to process in this kind of otherworldly environment. And so get really far away from it to really reflect on what they had seen and experienced. But also encourage you with whatever apps or whatever you're interested in to go play the things and do the things they are advertising. My friend and I were very excited to see this in Frisbee golf in Horizon Worlds. This was just a statue along the way, very basic shapes, but was very inclusive. And we were celebrating that and we wanted to get a selfie and share that out. So think about what people are going to share of any environments or stories you're telling. This is a training world. So if you look this book up on Amazon or online, that's the book cover, which is this blue couch. And that's the title of the book. But this is an example of making a surprising environment out of a two-dimensional picture. Instead of the two authors sitting on the couch, here are these people sitting on the couch. And this is a way to kind of get people to take that selfie and then go look up the book later. And this is the training world that's behind that event space. So you would sit on the couch if you're going to be a speaker and talk to people who come up and bring you questions, hopefully not stupid questions, but or you can go in the maze in the background and learn about this model of how to evaluate if you're ready to talk about DEI as a company, as an organization. So it makes something that's just like a flat graph a very real and vivid experience. Another immersive experience that I actually built for Meta is called the Grandmother Forest, where you restore the balance to the swamp. You can see the grandmother behind my head there. This is after the changes occurred. It's much more depressing when you come in with all the broken trees. You have to go gather different pieces of trees and foliage and build them to bring the grandmother back into a restored place. Think about the symbolism that goes with that. How many creators have been initiated by grabbing a few objects and putting a face on a tree. This is another space, build your own monster. So how do we engage with the part inside of people that wants to be destructive or chaotic? This space has been incredibly popular for team building. And you can just literally grab all these different pieces off the wall and build all these different creatures and tell stories about how they interact. And, you know, as you can imagine, these aren't games that you're winning or losing, but they're very engaging and vivid and make amazing memories. Here's another one. This is actually for a project I'm working on right now called the Troll Project, and have a small, amazing team volunteering with me on this. Basically, we're asking trolls, why are you doing the thing you're doing? And this is the beginning of the world we want to build as a reflection of the answers we're hearing, where you're going to pick up broken pieces of this bridge to restore the bridge, and you're going to learn about what all those answers are. Why do trolls think they're trolling? So now we're going to look at a little more of the shadowy side of things, this concept of edutainment, how we are educating. So sometimes we're going in telling stories to be delighted, and sometimes we're going in to exercise those uncomfortable feelings and become more aware. This is a App Lab DEI training course. And what I appreciated is that it's making the implicit explicit. So it's teaching you about feeling your body, and it's asking you to like notice your hands, and it puts a mirror up and it's synchronizing you to this avatar body. And it initially gave me this light-skinned avatar. You know, it didn't ask me what color skin I wanted. And then it presented me with this darker skinned avatar ahead of me. And I was thinking about, you know, what are the stories that I tell about that? And if I had darker skin, how would that feel to be automatically assumed as a white skin? This is also part of that training. And I think this is an important thing to look at is, I don't think they meant to make this avatar look quite so intense, but I think it's important to ask ourselves, like, what is our budget to make approachable characters? And in this case, this was kind of the villain of the world, but I think it went too villainous, and it really distracted from the experience. And so definitely, again, in this case, this person was developing this outside of social VR. And so I don't know how much testing they got along the way before they were putting it out as a product. But this is part of the power of using something lower lift. This is something I really appreciated about their build, which is this elevator where you get to go down an elevator instead of an elevator pitch. You get to hear an uncomfortable situation, and it records you responding or engaging with this and trying to intervene if somebody's being biased or harmful. And then you get to step outside of it and watch your responses, watch your body language. Really, really clever. Definitely made me think about my reactions when I feel like a bystander and just want to get out. So now we're going to look even more into the shadowy side. So this, I believe, is from an app called Mission ISS. Throughout this whole experience, I was so struck by the only thing I could hear was these white males talking. And then I had never seen their face. And if you could imagine, I'm maybe a half hour into the experience and I'm outside trying to repair something on the ship, and this being, this very shadowy being, all of a sudden emerges in my view, and I literally screamed. And it made me just really have to question, why do we all seem to assume that astronauts are white males? And how does this make everyone else feel who isn't a white male? And this particular one, I felt like this was like a serial killer. It was very distressing. And I never finished the game. It was really just like, oh, like, I don't think this is for me. Checking my time because I have a really interesting video here. I think this is only like 2 minutes, but this is a game called Deism. And when you drop scientists into these different little societies you're building, watch what happens. Let's see if it actually plays here. Play. Here you go. I haven't shown anyone this, but it was just so striking to me. So I'm going to drop the scientist into this dark skin culture, and we're going to see. Hello. White guy. That's interesting. All right, let's try another one that is overtly dark skinned. Wow. Dude, we're going to talk. That's trippy. These are pirates. So they would be white. Or, oh no, that's not true. See, that was beeping biased. But seriously, gotta find place to drop the scientist. Doesn't have just light skin. Okay, how about this? Hey. Thank God, the scientists are all white. What's up with that? They're like the priests. Huh. Anybody else? Okay, for time, I'm going to stop that there. But as you can hear, I was actually confronting my own biases as I was preparing to potentially call this app out for what I was discovering. I record these all the time. Assume that your prosumers or consumers are going to be doing the same. And what story are they going to tell about your experience? And how do you include voices that aren't like yours and experiences from people that aren't like yours so that you're demonstrating you're aware of how you can affect, even if you intend well? So again, checking those feelings. This can be really uncomfortable to look at how good intentions can lead to harm, but that could be really harmful. That's telling a very deep story about skin color and intelligence or access or science. I mean, it's powerful how much that affected me, much less anyone else playing that game and who was building it, right? So like the Caldera Garden, just again, noticing that healing and harmful is interchangeable. It keeps going back and forth. And hopefully we're building stuff that is more healing than harmful. I think for time, I'm going to stop here. I was going to show you a little bit more about immersive spaces. Again, happy to share this deck.
Oh, yeah, feel free to share because
Yeah.
today, yeah, we have a lot of time until probably about 10:40. We have another kind of pre-recorded podcast, but yeah, feel free to share. And I saw a lot of people are asking like, oh, where should I get that? Or like, they are very interested in learning how to do Horizon World. And I put your contact, your LinkedIn, and also the survey to fill out the form. So yeah, so I think it's a great, this is an amazing presentation, and I learned a lot, and also like this is an amazing like community build. So I put like if anyone has any questions, feel free to post your questions down. Yeah, and we can yeah, like go over your questions. So yeah,
Yeah.
if you yeah, so Ruth, if you want to keep talking about the rest of the
Oh, okay.
deck,
Do
yeah,
we have
feel free to
time?
do it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we have time. Yeah.
It's really good to hear. I thought we had to cut off right at the time. Okay. Yay. Oh my God, I'm actually going to get through a slide deck. This is unusual. So there's this really amazing group in VR chat, and I went back and forth on sharing this. So I would say be careful about who you share this with. I'm hoping that everybody present and watching this is going to practice inclusivity and also protection. But I think that what I love about this world and this community group is how much it embodies so much diversity. Like you can be all these different avatars in this space, but the space itself is so warm and the colors and everything about it is welcoming and celebrating trans identity. And in a world that is so anti-trans and discriminatory, I'd never been in a place that really like made that the central piece. And they have thousands of people that are involved with them. And it's like a mecca and a utopia of if we weren't being so biased and binary and it's this or that, and you are born with what you're born with, and all of these prejudices that are instilled in us before we ever have words, like going to that world can be so healing to help us recognize how diversity feels when it's celebrated and centered. And the kindness and the consciousness of this community is really outstanding. One of the most organized and genuine and fierce communities I've ever met. So go at your own risk because they do guard their space really, really well. And I appreciate that. And also know that the avatars you will see there are just delightful and bizarre and so many different shapes and sizes. And these were just a couple new friends that I met in that space and a treasured memory. Making your interactive environments a place where people can start to sketch out their creativity. This was briefly, maybe took 5 minutes or something for people to just start building these stories together with pens in the air in VR chat. A lot of worlds have these pens and it can kind of look messy at first. But what was really great about this was that a troll came in and was being very disruptive and was invited to come build with us and just draw something with us. And so they made, I believe, the vehicle, the projectile yellow that's coming out, they drew those lines or whatever. But the whole group was inclusive and just kind of like started to tell a different story and try to figure out how all these different parts were and that troll like was really shocked to not be blocked and banned. And so they sat with us for a while and just talked about life and noticing that destructive part in all of us that wants to kind of mess up the story. And how do we build the story again, including some of that chaos? Thought it was a good example. Boundaries, how do we set boundaries? Some of the worlds in these different immersive realities are very dark and can be really harmful in different ways. But if they have that boundary where you know that you are consenting to exposure of some of these different things, it can also be therapeutic. But without that boundary, it can be really, really harmful. So I appreciated how explicit this one was. It's probably the most detailed I've ever seen in informed consent. Just letting you know that you might get triggered in all these different ways. It doesn't make it okay. There's some concerning parts about what it's saying, but I also really appreciate that there needs to be a space for all that is human sometimes. And how do we inform people about that? This is a different one. You may have heard about the phenomena of the back rooms where you wander about. I had to take pictures in this because the person on the left had guided us through this 40-minute sinking journey of swimming through these underwater spaces and going through all these empty rooms. And at the very bottom, after that long of a journey, they just kept tugging us through. I didn't really know where we were. Here were these 3 notes that gave you these different options on what you do at the end of that journey. If you look over to the right, it's a very extreme statement that this is actually recommending. And I'm still processing what to do with that. I've talked to quite a bit of creators and journeyers who have been to this world, and they never actually got this far. But, you know, how are we matching the story of shadow and utter despair? And is this validation or is this causing harm? Someone recently told me they think that somebody actually did take their life after going to this world. I don't know more details of that story, but I wanted to give you an example of how story can lead to the ultimate harm, which is killing self or others. And recognizing that there can be places for the exploration of that shadow, but how do we qualify those places? And how do we let people choose other options if they can't go that dark? I was lucky to have a friend with me who was able to kind of help me stay grounded, because I just happened to be in a darker place personally at the time, and it was too much darkness for me. Also thinking in your environmental design about generational knowledge, how complex the environment is. Older generations might need more simple. Meme culture. I feel very old these days. I do not understand meme culture. What you see over to the right is not just a item, it's actually an avatar. You can assume this as your form. And it's might make you laugh, it might make you cringe. There's a lot of complexity to this particular avatar that I discovered. But understanding the culture of how your stories are going to be digested, who the majority of the population is to discover your stories first, is important. And knowing that it's murky and there's all kinds of ways people are expressing their dismay with the world and their own lives, and trying to understand what your responsibility is as a metaverse or spatial computing verse citizen to be responsible together to co-create spaces that are inclusive. And then, yeah, keeping in mind that if your space is successful, most of the time, you're not going to be there every time to explain these things. So being careful with what messages you're telling. So I have a couple of videos here, but I don't want to get too deep in it because I feel like I've been talking a long time and I would love to hear what the questions are. But you can find out more about this troll project and what these immersive spaces elicit out of trolls and ex-trolls by, getting the slide deck. I want to check in. Yeah, Dominique, are there any questions coming in?
So far, I think everybody was very love your presentation. And so far we have 74 people watch online. 74.
74.
One of the popular sessions in our 5 years of I think the top three. Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. I feel like the last time I did this, it was like 5 people. So you have grown too, celebrating. I'm going to end with this particular screen shot, which was a really powerful. So, you know, if you ever do immersive experiences, taking photos of yourself can be the way to capture that memory. Think about the dreamscape. You can't, when you're actually dreaming, you can't take selfies there. But most of the time when I see people take pictures, they try to take them with each other, you know? But this one I took with myself, and this was before one of the hardest days of my life, about a year ago. And I had this instinct to go into VR chat and just like sit with myself and find a world that embodied kind of the chaos and the intensity of what I was facing. And so when I see this picture, it anchors me to that memory so deeply of facing myself and holding that space and feeling the fracturedness of what was about to happen, and seeing the beauty in it, and also knowing that a lot of people might see this and just see chaos and see a lot of confusing feelings and not even recognize who was behind that avatar. So that's what I'm going to end with. I think it kind of mirrors that initial question of what are the feelings that we have, and how do they map with each other, and how are they all connected? In this
Yeah.
case, I was feeling everything.
Yeah, I have the same feeling, and I feel like your tone is very soothing and very meditating. And while looking at all your creativities, building a very include DEI types of community inside Horizon World or VR chat, I admire that you bring all the goodness into the VR community, and also not only bring that, but also doing a lot of education parts. So if you are interested in joining Ruth workshop, I post a lot the form. Feel free to fill it out, and pretty soon we will announce Ruth's workshop. So please fill out the form. And I saw a lot of people want to connect with you to get a copy of this deck. And also people are very interested in learning like how to monetize in Horizon Worlds. So yeah, and can you share with us like what do you see as a world builder? What's the opportunity of monetization? Because I saw a lot of people, in XR field during last year and this year because of all the layoff stuff. So when I saw a lot of creators, content creators are seeking for monetization opportunities. Can you share with us?
Yeah, yeah. I get that question a lot. I have had the privilege, and it is pretty rare still, I think, in XR to have monetized off of one's world building skills. Have I ever made money off of my worlds directly that I created for fun? No. But did those worlds that I created for fun and for like experimentation and community design lead to paid experiences in building worlds? Yeah. I've heard a lot of people, there's a piece around social VR that there's a sense of like all the empty worlds, like all the worlds that are just sitting there waiting for somebody to discover them. And there's a real despair because, it's a big deal to dream something up and then go through the fight and the labor and the technical difficulties to build it and then feel like nobody sees it and it doesn't become anything. So what I encourage people to do is instead of thinking of that world like the fruit of a tree, if you're the tree, think about it like the seed of another tree, and that you're building a forest of what's inside of you, outside of you. And someday that forest is going to have all kinds of fruits pouring out of it. But the first fruit that pours out of that forest is you. That when we create what's inside, outside of us, we change ourselves in the process. And if we loosen the concept of money, well, that is a beautiful dream. I want to be paid to dream and share my dreams with people. That's really what we're saying, right? If we loosen the concept of monetization and recognize that compensation can be somebody's emotional gratitude or experience, it can be a community organizing and finding each other in the space and sharing that with us. That is so touching for me when I meet people who found each other through the spaces that I built. When we recognize that monetization can be how getting that shadow or story outside of me lets me be in physical reality differently and empowers me with those reflections from the immersive community saying, you're amazing, Ruth, that I can be more assertive and monetize in other ways in physical reality while I wait for my forest to grow and all the fruit of those worlds to find the people who want to pay me to do more of that. A lot of the people who have monetized are not necessarily building their dreams. They're building marketing experiences for brands. And while that might sound fun, there's a lot of work behind that that is not fun, and especially learning how to coordinate with teams in immersive reality. A lot of times we imagine that developers and designers really have the life. They're living it. They get up from their night dreams and then they just build their daydreams all day. And it really isn't like that. A lot of the people that work in XR and immersive experience building, have a real struggle with their work-life balance. And it can be really hard to feel like it's worth it on some of those days. So just recognizing this is an early technology. We are all very early adopters of that. It's awkward, it's clunky. We have technic, there are costs to this that we don't even know how they're gonna take away from us going forward. And so instead of thinking of, I want to monetize next week and Ruth is going to give me the connection that'll do it because I'm ready, think of it like you are growing the community and the professional village who eventually is just going to, like, from every direction say, you're ready and we're ready to amplify you. And that might take 10 years. But in the meantime, you might be the stepping stone and path for many other people to monetize first. And prepare for those moments and find grace in that. Find grace in being the initiator of other people's journeys who have a different kind of message that the world is ready to hear or see first, and will hopefully at some point turn back when they're in that higher place, more elevated place, and say, you were part of what brought me here. And I have so many people that brought me to this moment. And I also struggle at times, many times, with making my basic means and living. But it is a wild ride. It is the externalizing of the internal imagination, and it is an incredible privilege. And if you look at it like you're planting a tree, just know it's going to take time for that to grow and feel like it does pay off. But it doesn't mean it's not worth the practice of building what calls you and obsesses you and will transform you, whether or not you ever make a penny off of it.
Yeah, I really resonate with Ruth because I've been building XReality Pro for at least 5 years. And yeah, so my original idea is every Saturdays, if let's gather together and learn something XR. So that's my original thought. And so that's why I start creating a lot of different workshops and speaker events. Yeah, so I think just echoing what Ruth said is that we enjoy the process. And whether it will monetize next week or not, yeah, this is a long-term types of community build. And I heard a lot of people kind of asking some questions about community build because yeah, I learned some other people's thoughts. And for example, there will be other voice such as, hey, I just giving away my content, right? And it feels like a like there's not satisfaction without having like a charging or something. So I think, yeah, I do agree that we might need some like monetization strategy. However, I saw like recently because of all the recession and also creators, you see like a layoff, like there are so many layoffs. So in the past, if you are building a community, it's compare with right now, it's fairly easier to get some donations here and there from creators. But right now, the creators are trying to get things for free and trying to build their own thing because they have a lot of times, but they don't have projects. So I'm very like emphasize it and just like a Ruth said that right now we are just plant the trees. And I can tell you, actually, if you see the majority of our content is free, right? So yeah, we are also thinking about how to create a healthier, like a monetization system.
Yeah.
I think that's every community's like questions. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I want to say about that is, like, when I hear monetization, I used to feel like, oh, have you put your time in almost? Because I have my own community debt of like thousands and thousands of hours investing in people and community and whatever, and no monetization. If we calculated how much money I've made in XR to how much time I've spent doing XR, I'm probably several, maybe 1 cent per hour kind of thing. It's really severe if you look at it like that. And has this journey brought me from my sciencey self and my creative self into more alignment? So I feel like the same person more and more every day, and I'm not having to switch between these identities or mind states. Yeah. And so when I hear monetization, I think, wow, you have found a home here. You have found a sense of belonging, a sense of this is my calling, this is my purpose. I want to be passionate all the time. And I want that to be sustainable. I want to know that I can keep being passionate and have that calling all the time. And that is a brilliant need. That's an important need. And for the people who really believe that this is their calling, they're going to stick it out through the dry spells where it's not having any money come in, because they know the importance of this technology and the possibilities of how it's going to transform our species, how it catalyzes our mind states and helps us all find more of our village and what we're needing. But right now, it's mostly an entertainment space. It's an escapism. And it takes like these incredible pillars like you, Dominique, who are just putting in the work, putting in the rhythms, keeping the passion going to actually get it to the place where more and more people will monetize on some level. But I would say ask yourself what's behind that need to monetize and find the stepping stones to that place of sustainable monetization and recognize the wins of that. The first moment you build an immersive space and you hear from somebody that they are softened, they are inspired, they are changed, you made their day better, that is a type of payback. And it is an incredible feeling to know that anything you could put together could impact somebody so quickly and so deeply. There is a gift there.
Yeah, and I think for the emotion design and also the community build, I saw you have a lot of like analyze for the different apps. And I really love like how you analyze it and how you spotlight on something that, oh, for example, ISS, I was like laughing at it. I didn't see that way, but it's like maybe the execution is so bad that astronaut looks like a serial killer. It makes me feel very terrifying in a space that you are very vulnerable and there's a serial killer look at you very
I literally stopped the app and I like looked at the instructions because I was like, wait, is this a horror game? And I was like, no, it's just white male power. It's too much for me.
This is very interesting. Yeah. So so as for the upcoming workshop, what are you going planning to teach? Because a lot of people are interested in learning about because yeah, like what's the kind of like the things they will learn.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, there's this menu of different places we can go. I have saturated myself in this space with amazing design mentors for the last few years. I feel like I've gotten another doctorate in environmental design. And so it's not about we're going to learn one thing, it's about what are we going to learn together that fits everybody the most. And what I'm going to do after we get this survey filled out, if you're planning to sign up, is I'm going to reach out to the people who signed up and give you that heads up of, okay, we're going to be focusing on these different areas. Depending on those areas, we'll spend more or less time in a headset experience. And for those of you who don't have access to that, but still would find value in hearing me talk a lot and show you all kinds of things, we're going to be streaming that like we did today, sharing screen and streaming it so you can watch and follow along and still take notes and learn things. And for people who want to be in part-time but need to get out of the headset sometimes for whatever reason, that'll also be the option for you. But the goal for this is a beginning workshop of sorts. And we will do some creating for those interested in Horizon Worlds. So you'll be maybe hopefully going in ahead of time and getting somewhat familiar with those tools, but I will tell you, it is amazing how much you can create an emotion with just a few very low poly objects in their relationship to each other. So we'll be doing a combination of a conversation where we'll be hopping between environments and thinking and talking about how it's impacting us and who it would be most helpful or healing for and who it might be harmful for. And then we'll be also doing some challenges and exercise of creating environments that evoke emotions and play some games that way. I've led a lot of different jams and world building initiatives with groups and have all kinds of those experiences up my sleeve that will be for people who want to actually do the creation then, but also people that just want to put a swampy tree together or build a monster. And that's a much lower lift, but still you'll be able to walk away thinking, wow, I get it now at a different level.
Yeah, so right now we have 96 people watch live. I would say this is the most popular live streaming. Yeah, and I really appreciate Ruth. I would say you are the doctor in the world view and all the if people who just jump in because of the book writing, I jump into Ruth, a lot of worlds built, and those worlds are so like a meaningful in every points or every like a subject that you address is just spot on, right? So I think your world is definitely amazing. And if anybody who is seeking for like a DEI consultation or worldview, definitely contact Ruth. And now we have 99 people watch online. Wow, just need another one person.
I know, it's a telethon and we're going to invite your friends.
Yeah, invite your friends. So definitely join our, join our.
So also what I want to say on that, that's really lovely to hear, is that I think that before I discovered social immersive virtual reality, I believed that it takes time to build an emotion in person, in people. Like it takes time to like evoke something as big as awe or wonder or the release of grief, that you don't do that quickly or somehow it's not as valuable. And what I learned over these thousands of hours was that's not true. You can initiate a very powerful emotion in people. And especially if you land them in a place of reflection and digesting of what that emotion brought up in them, it can be incredibly meaningful and much less of a trauma response than I imagined having an extreme emotion. And so I think part of what I love teaching, as you said, the DEI consulting and world building and environmental design work, is I have joked that I need to build another company. I have way too many already, just called Next Level Consulting. So whatever level your environment or your experience or your story is, I can come in pretty quickly and help you raise that bar and help you bring people into it deeper and help you figure out how to test it with an actually like diverse audience who can give you those reflections that you need so you can sleep at night when people are using it and you're not in there. And so I think that's the magic of this technology, is we can co-create, but we can also next level each other. And that's what makes me so passionate and excited about it.
Yeah, right now we have 102 people watching. Wow. I feel like we are in a summit, and this is definitely the most popular live streaming that we have. Thank you, Ruth. And I feel like, wow, we have 101 people watching live, and we kind of like stop it. So do you have anything you want to say?
I would really invite, for those of you who heard about this or just catching up, watch what we just talked about. I just pushed people through like 60 slides in 60 minutes. But also we have a Discord for Figure It In, which is my company, that you can join. Maybe Dominique, you can put the link to that in the chat, wherever it's at. I will copy it right here and
Yeah,
send it
if
in our.
you share with me, and I love to share with everyone. And for XReality, for me, I think right now this is the time that all the creators, we want to help creators to either I know monetization has a lot of feelings for a lot of people, but I would say that yeah, I mean you want to build something really good for other people, but that model need to be sustainable because we need to have a safe shelter and we need to have some food to eat. So all those like supports were really meaningful and helpful for us to keep doing something that is meaningful to you and also part of we feel like wow, that's great that we are helping people while we are able to pay our bills. That's the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I just put the link to
Yeah.
Discord in the comment
Yeah.
section for this event on LinkedIn.
I
And
just repost it. Yeah.
okay, wonderful. Yeah. So that's a place where, we might start to have some regular world hops for donation, etc. So people who don't necessarily they're not ready to create, but they want to start to digest and take in environments with that psychology lens and learn how to listen and watch how people respond. That's just a way to do that. And yeah, I'm app agnostic. So for those of you that are you can't access Horizon Worlds or it's not yet available publicly on desktop, that's okay. I also go to other social apps and game experiences, and if there's enough interest, I'm really happy to do some streaming sessions where you get to hear how my mind works when I encounter games and experiences for the first time. I'm a little bit blunt at times, but it's all out of an effort to care.
Yeah,
So
we have 105 people. I feel like it's just close right
like,
now. It feels like wow, suddenly everything was like a big booming, and I think a lot of people are very interested in this area, and definitely Ruth is the person that I knew that really building things, right? And if you see her creations, every world is different and it's so well done and follow with the real purpose and goals getting into, and you can feel fulfilled. So I think, and with Ruth, like the doctor degree of psychology, and I always feel very, I would say, soothing or therapy, getting a lot of therapies when just talking to Ruth, and her soothing voice can always calm me down. So I really appreciate
yeah.
Ruth today joining us. I know right now we have 106 people watching right now. I don't want to close it, but it
Well,
seems like okay.
let me also just let people know, because I looked to see if anybody's signed up for the workshop, and it doesn't look like very many people have flowed into that yet. So I'm going to
Oh, yeah, please post it because I think a lot of times, for example, before we had a workshop, and I reach out to people who sign up kind of on the LinkedIn and not really sign up on Eventbrite. And I kind of dive into the reason is because a lot of people are unemployed. So they pretty much they only can watch live, for example, like the session we have today for live for free. And for me, I understand like yeah, right now, this is economy not so, not so good. So for me, I love to do things, for example, like if something is free to share, then that's great. But for example, like for our guests, like Ruth, and also a lot of like workshops that we have to at some point we have to have some monetization. So yeah, if you are not affordable for all those tickets, you can watch our free content online. And if you afford those tickets and you want to support us for us to keep moving forward, for us to build a better community for the society, and for us to move this group moving forward, feel free to donate us or support us. We have like a Patreon, or like Ruth has the Discord. Yeah, all those helps us to just push a good content consistently to the society. Yeah,
Yeah.
we just like we are on a mission, which we want to bring a better quality content consistently. So yeah, we have 111 people watching now. I feel like the
Growing,
more we
we're all
talk
part of
about
the social experience. What I also posted is the link to the workshop in the chat underneath this event, if you hadn't done that already. So basically, like, I believe we set the price point at 175 for a 6-hour workshop. And there is some sliding fee available for diverse identities, especially. And I just want to say that, like, this workshop would normally probably cost in the realm of like $1,000, because it isn't just learning and taking notes. You also have the opportunity to interact and watch some creation design and watch a group process the emotional states that come up in immersive environments. So I would hope that you would see it as a investment in that monetization and that forest that you're going to build. And we can close this. I think I'm cutting off here at 1.5 hours. We can close this on the high note and thanking everybody. Please share this video out, and don't be shy about joining the Discord and sending your questions. The creative space can pay off in other ways than monetization. And being excited about building emotions in people is like my absolute heaven. So, don't be shy.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much. I know right now we have 116 people watch live. I hate to close, but thanks so much for all the support. This is the #1 live streaming that we have ever had. Yeah, thank you so much for Ruth. You create the milestone. Yeah.
We have a vortex of people that are like, I'm ready to have emotions around design. So it's an honor. It's an honor. And please, if you join the Discord, then you'll get the link to that interview with Taja Sudra, which just an incredible world builder. And I felt very reverent to get to talk to him yesterday to present that 5-minute teaser to you all. So I'll actually put that link to the teaser in the chat also, so that people can look at that. But yeah, I'm going to take off. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Be well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's it for this episode. Thank you for listening. We release episodes every Saturday. If you enjoy this conversation, check out our other episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. Support us by subscribing to our channels and give us a 5-star rating. Thank you and see you around.